Hello, friends. Welcome back. We are back for another episode of Oh, for Dying Out Loud. I am your fabulous host, Angie, the Magical Life Midwife. And joining me today, as always, is
I'm Laura. I'm the dazzling death doula of this duo.
yes, very good. It's so nice to see you. Love your face.
Yay.
So Laura and I conferred before we got online, and as many of you may or may not know, so our podcast is titled Oh, for Dying Out Loud. And yes, she's the death doula. We want to talk about death and dying and the transition and making it sacred and all of those good things, which are important. But we also want to talk about how that helps us to live better. And today happens to be a very special event, which is it is the new moon in the sign of Cancer. Now, some of you who don't follow astrology or new moon are going, what? They are taking a hard left turn at Albuquerque. What is happening? Yes. So this is kind of a great segue to talk about cycles. This is where I want to go today, Laura.
Yep.
I want to talk about cycles because we think of, and I think this is what helps us also when we can reframe death around it's just another cycle. Because if we look at nature for our cues, we are dying all the time.
Right.
Nature is dying all the time. The cells of your pancreas are dying and being rebirthed all the time, right? So if we can get into this idea and live more in harmony with the cycles of nature, we can be more in tune with this idea of death is just another part of that cycle. It's just another natural cycle. So, and this, I got to thinking about this all day today. I've been so excited to talk to you about it. So you think about fall, the leaves, they dry up, they fall, the crops wither, the fields lie fallow, everything kind of dies down. That is a collective natural death. And then there's rebirth again, right? Always. In yoga, one of everybody's favorite poses is, that's right, corpse pose, which, why do they call it corpse pose? Okay, so that's kind of creepy. You're laying there like you're in a coffin. But the idea from a spiritual perspective is to learn how to die. And that sounds scary for people. And what I kind of want to talk a little bit about is that it shouldn't be scary. And we want to help it not be scary, because when we talk about dying, I'm talking about, yes, corpse pose, we get good at being still and potentially preparing for our own death, but more so dying to all the things that do not serve us.
Absolutely.
Like, let's death to the negative thinking, death to limited thinking, death to the way that we sabotage ourselves from expressing our best and highest, right? There are all these things that could be a little bit of a death, and there could be grieving as part of that.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a whole topic. This could be a couple of podcasts. It might be.
For sure. Yeah. So one of the things when you said this to me is that I instantly thought of, well, there were a couple of things. Number one, hibernation is a perfect example of this. Bears do this every year. They go, they slow everything down. Cockroaches, I don't like them, but cockroaches definitely are able to, I have read, kind of go into this weird, this is why they would be the last survivors on the earth, because they can go into this really almost frozen state where they just stop. And then when they're able to, they can start back up. But in some cultures, there are traditions where people dig a hole and go out and die. They dig their own grave, they lay down in it, and they kind of go on this seeking sort of adventure where they sort of try to discover their own rebirth. So it really got
Really?
me thinking about how often this plays out in the natural world, in other cultures. So I love this. I think this is a perfect topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting because it's like we want to make death like this thing that we don't talk about and we put in the back corner. But death is happening all around us all the time. Because, and if you think about it from a spiritual perspective, right, they say that energy cannot be destroyed,
Right.
right? It only changes form.
Mhm.
So, really, truly, there is no death. We are just changing form. We are disintegrating and changing form. And so, we talked about, I mentioned that today is the new moon. So, traditional cultures, both Celtic, Native American, I imagine there are other tribal cultures, relied heavily on the seasons of the year,
Mhm.
the natural seasons, but also the seasons, the celestial seasons, and the new moon and the full moon. And for example, Native American tradition had the Moon Lodge, which is really reserved for women. This is when during the new moon meaning for those who are newbies, new moon is when the earth, or excuse me, the moon is passing between the sun and the earth so that the earth casts a shadow on the surface of the moon, and it looks like it's not there, right? It's completely dark. So that's called a new moon. And in Native American tradition, the Moon Lodge, the women gathered for about 3 days around every new moon to rest, because traditionally, when the moon is new, it was a symbol of death. It was a symbol of drawing inward, the dark womb, going within to just rest and rejuvenate,
Mhm.
right? And so they would go into these moon lodges, these tents, no boys allowed, and they were allowed to rest as much as they needed. Most of the time, they would cycle together. They would be on their menses together. And that is obviously when most women are at their least energetic, and they're supposed to conserve energy during this time. I wish I had known about this because I would have planned my life a whole lot differently, but I didn't find out about that until much later. So the elder women would come together and they would, help cook, so everybody had food. They would encourage everybody to, rest and eat. And they would also provide teaching, teach the women about child rearing and marriage and midwife skills and esoteric skills, and really tapping into your spiritual power as a woman. So the Moon Lodge was very, very, very important in a lot of these nature-based spiritual traditions.
Mhm.
And they took their cues from nature. If it's the new moon, this is not the time that you should be planning big projects and spending a lot of time with a lot of other people. And you might start to notice when you start paying attention to these cycles, you're naturally drawn to that, where, yeah, I don't really feel like going out and doing a whole lot. Why am I tired for, this during this time of the month or whatever? So it's like nature gives us permission and says, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be resting, meditating, get a little extra sleep if you can, and do some more introspective and spiritual work, and set your intentions. New moons are really good because it's kind of like, okay, we've got this blank slate, this fertile soil. What seeds do you want to plant in it? And then at the full moon, that's when we're at our highest energy and we want to celebrate. We want to celebrate what we've harvested from those intentions if they've begun to bloom. That's when we want to get out and be with other people. And it's just a more energetic time frame. So the moon has its cycles that helps us to get into a rhythm within our own lives, i.e., we are not meant to be on all the time.
Right.
Can I get an amen for that?
Amen. Amen.
Oh, Yeah.
I do, as you're talking about this, I always think of, because I like to be devil's advocate, mostly because of the people I know. And I like to remind people that if you have reservations about considering the moon cycles having any effect, look at tides.
Mhm.
The moon cycle has an absolute impact upon tides and tidal waves. And so it's really, if you want a scientific and a thing that you can grasp a hold of, just absolutely look at that and
Yeah.
consider that that is real. So
Oh, yeah.
don't just think that it's some, crazy thing like I'm
Right.
not asking you to have faith. I'm saying, no, this is just legitimately science, although you can have faith about a lot of things, which I think is important too. However,
Yes.
in this particular case, the waves and the moon cycle are absolutely intertwined. So of course it has an impact
Right.
on us.
Well, sure. And there's still some people that are going to still think that that's a little bit of poppycock, we'll say. Uh, but, you're absolutely right. It does have a pull on the tides, and human bodies are 75% water. So if it has that kind of a pull on a giant body of water, I'm thinking it has an impact on these little bitty bodies of water.
Absolutely.
And if you need further validation, go talk to a nurse, particularly in the ER, or talk to someone like, who works in the social services, right? The full moon brings out a lot of zany behavior.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's evidence of it. But even the farmer's almanac,
Mhm.
a tried and true, trusted almanac about working with the land and planting crops and harvesting. That's all based around moons and tides and
Mhm.
that energy. So it's, again, our tribal ancestors knew what they were doing. They paid great attention to nature
Mhm.
because it allowed them to live. If
Right.
you didn't pay attention to the moon cycles or the season cycles, you're going to have a really challenging time feeding your family if you're growing your own food, right? You have to be in sync with that and plan ahead and plan for that. Like during the winter when nothing's growing, what do? Well, you have all of your roots, your root foods they're going to be earthy and grounding, and they're going to sustain you through those winter months. Likewise, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so in that vein, Angie, my friend,
Yes.
how does that impact? How can we utilize that information to impact a better way of living?
Oh, that's a great question, and that's my favorite topic to talk about. It really is about paying attention to the seasons and the moon and living in concert with that. This is what I love to talk about in terms of living soulfully, is really living in harmony with nature. For example, like I just said, during the new moons, I tend to really make sure or do my best to not schedule a lot of social activity around those new moons. And I do something extra special in terms of I'm going to take more time for meditation, maybe do a longer yoga practice. I love to do ritual salt baths, so Epsom salt baths to just kind of, again, add that sacred element, honoring my body. So I will do something slower and more contemplative around that time. And what this does, honestly, is it's built-in self-care. That's what it is. That's what we're doing. Nature's going, hey, you can't run ragged. How about you take some self-care during the time of a new moon? Perfect. I'll do it. And then the full moon, that's where it's like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to get out and celebrate. I'm going to harness that energy that I'm naturally feeling, and I'm going to put it to good use. With the seasons, I love to follow the seasons as well. Many of us know about the four main seasons, depending on where you live, but take your cue from season. When it's springtime, and the days are becoming longer, that's the time to plant your seeds in the garden. That's the time to get out and be more active. That's when, if you pay attention to what's in season in your grocery store or in your garden, nature tells you what to eat. So you come out of hibernation in winter. Winter is, admittedly, it's one of my favorite seasons because it is nature's way of saying, slow down, hibernate, get extra rest, right? I'm all about that. I think I might have been a bear in another life. I really do. And, but you know, when you're in order to get through that time frame, you're tending to eat heavier foods that are going to sustain you through the cold winter nights, right? When you come out of winter, you can't keep eating that way. I mean, you could, but nature says, no, 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 no. Now we're going to give you greens and these early greens that you can eat that are astringent, and it's meant to clean your body and bring yourself back to a state of lightness physically. So it says, here's, look at all this bounty of new greens and early, you know, vegetables and things like that, that we want you to eat so that you can slough off the winter weight, which we all talk about. Oh, I gained weight this winter. Yeah, that's pretty natural. Yeah. And then you lose it in the spring when you become more active and greener foods come to be in season. And then in summer, again, the days are getting warmer and longer. So we're encouraged to be more active. We're all outdoors. We're socializing. We're gardening. The heat is a little bit more intense. So what's interesting, there's this paradox in that, yes, the heat becomes a little bit more intense. And so sometimes you feel energetic, but other times you might feel like, oh, I feel like resting, like taking that 2 p.m. siesta, you know. And what's in season? Did you know? Think about when apples come in season. From an Ayurvedic perspective, Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga, and it is all about healthy living. From an Ayurvedic perspective, apples are in season in late fall, and they are the food to eat in August and September. Why? Because they take heat out of the body. So it's a way for us to cool down because it is so intensely hot. So, and then from a Ayurvedic standpoint, on the opposite side of that is that what will take you out of balance in summer is eating lots and lots of spicy food and charred meats and things that are going to cause a lot of inflammation in your body. You don't want that. You don't want that. That's why gardens and nature are going, here's all of these sweet fruits and apples and things that are going to cool you. So then, and then you get into fall, things start to dry up. The days are getting shorter. We're harvesting all of our stuff. We're getting our canning going, and we're preparing for the winter. And so we're eating a little bit more warm foods, and we're eating more oily foods, you know, the good oatmeal breakfasts and, you know, things of that nature to prepare ourselves for winter. And the cycle continues.
That's so interesting because you're right. I don't typically eat. It's not that I couldn't eat oatmeals or stews. I make a ton of stews. I make my own veggie broth from veggie scraps because I'm crazy. But I just have been talking about how I have like 6 bags, I think, full of veggie scraps because I don't have room to store more veggie broth, but also I have all these scraps to use. And it's like, oh yeah, because I'm not cooking with it because it's summer. I don't want soup. I don't want stew. I don't want oatmeal, hot oatmeal in the morning.
Right.
That just happens.
Right. Yeah. And you start to notice that you're naturally, if you really get quiet and you start to notice what you're drawn to, there's a reason why we're drawn to those fresh fruits and veggies and salads and things of that nature, because we're looking for cooling foods. We're not ready to hunker down with hot stuff, you know? Why do you think everybody is at Starbucks with a giant tumbler of an iced coffee, right? It's not hot coffee. Like when I get the rare occasional coffee, and because I like my coffee warm, I do not like it cold. And so if I'm ordering it in the summer, they're like, is that iced? They always assume it's iced. And I'm
Yes.
like, no, I'm actually the weird one that wants it hot. Thank you.
Mhm.
Not probably the best thing for me right now, but
Right.
on occasion it happens. So yeah, so this cycle, it's all, nature is constantly dying and being reborn, dying and being reborn, dying and reborn. And the more that we can get in connection with that cycle, we find a greater sense of ease in our bodies, as well as emotional and spiritual, navigating those seasons. There's a purpose to it. There's an absolute purpose to it. And I know it has been the one thing that has been so transformational in my life is following the moon cycles and following the cycles of the seasons. Absolutely.
So when a person, so I like this idea of following the cycle. So, and we kind of do it in our culture a little. We have spring cleaning, although some people have a fall cleaning too. Um, but one of the great things I think you and I talked about before is that this can transcend into something deeper. So it's about cutting off or cleansing yourself of bad thoughts or
Mhm.
hurtful things,
Yeah.
or kind of that, which I
Medieval.
love about the new moon. I absolutely love about the new moon. It's always my favorite time to so in the world of magic, I believe it's if you want to, like, full moon is all about energy and manifesting, and new moon is always about intentions and doing the groundwork and keeping, I like to think of it as close to the earth, like just really,
Yes.
really down
Yeah.
here.
Very grounded.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Yes. It really is. I mean, it's a built-in contemplative practice when you
Mm.
follow the moon cycle. So for example, I'm going to segue here just a little bit and talk about this new moon that's happening today.
Yeah.
Um, and it's the new moon in Cancer. You don't have to necessarily follow the astrological signs. I tend to, just
Mhm.
because it provides a theme or a framework for that contemplative practice. So let's think about Cancer for a moment. Cancer is the sign of the crab. Okay. And the crab, actually, Cancer is at home in the moon is in the sign of Cancer. Like that is the moon's, or that's Cancer's jam, is the moon, because it's a watery sign, it's an emotional sign, and very in touch with the emotions. However, Cancer is the crab, right? Tough shell exterior, soft, gooey innards,
Mhm.
right? And so what I like to think about in terms of themes around a new moon in Cancer is that this is an optimal time for us to ask questions such as, where do I need to set boundaries on my energy? Particularly right now during the summer. We've been working hard, going hard for most of the summer, and maybe we need some rest. We need to factor in some rest. Where are you not doing enough self-care? That is Cancer's question. Where are you not doing enough care for yourself, not
Mhm.
others, for yourself? And what do you want that to look like? So, for example, for these new moon rituals, you can, plan it out however elaborate or small as you want, but having those reflection questions to ask, what intentions do I want to set for this next cycle? It's a chance for us to review. How did the last month go for me? How have I been doing? Have I been entertaining negative thinking? Have I been argumentative? Have I not been, really good about my healthy eating or exercise? Or have I been a recluse and not socializing, or vice versa? It's just an opportunity to sit and reflect on, how are things going? And if they're not going the way that I want, what do I need to do differently? So that's really all this is about. It is a planned, cycle for us to just stop and go, let's do a check-in. And I don't think, I think that's become more popular now with mental well-being, but I still think we can talk about it more. check in, check in, check in. What do you need? What's not working? What is working? And if there's something that's not working, can you let go of that? Can you let it die?
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes I'll even do, you can get those little flash papers
Mm.
and you can write down the things that you want to release and hold that over a candle flame and poof, I love it.
I do too.
It's just symbolic of the fact that I am no longer claiming this. And that's valuable because under all of that, if we don't take time to reflect and we do not cultivate awareness of what is working and what isn't working, we can't make any changes for the
Right.
better. And we have no one to blame but ourselves.
That's true.
Sorry,
Oh,
little
I
truth
need
bomb.
that.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I like,
yeah.
I just like the idea of having this. So first of all, I'm a big advocate for new moon circles or having some sort of a group. It doesn't have it doesn't can be religious, non-religious, whatever, where you're kind of giving yourself permission to just go do something completely indulgent, let's say,
Mhm.
which really it doesn't end up being indulgent. It's really about self-care.
Right.
So I think that's really important. And I like this idea of for timing's sake, the new moon being a time when we all are able to, because like you said, it's just an easy reminder. It's an easy reminder. Here it is. Like, just stop and take care of yourself for a minute and give yourself this time set aside to really reflect. Because like you said, it's an important and beautiful moment when we can allow ourselves the opportunity to consider that which does not serve us,
Mhm.
or what heavy burden are we carrying that we don't need to, right?
So
Or, whether
Mhm.
what is weighing us down, and what do we hope will change, and how do we want, because this, like, it's intention.
Right.
That is setting your intention.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we talked last time about Swedish death cleaning. I mean, this is kind of like doing a mini cleaning every 2 weeks, or every month on the new moon is going, okay, let me just level set again.
Mhm.
And it's what I found interesting is that when you start to watch the patterns, like, I'm a big geek about the following the moon cycles. In fact, on my calendar, I have when the new moons are, when the full moons are, and what signs they're in. And I can see it coming. And when you start to pay attention and watch others around you
Mhm.
who may have no idea that there's a new moon or a full moon coming, just watching the collective, you'll start to see patterns. You will absolutely start to see patterns in how people are behaving, and particularly if they're not in tune. And it's just a great reminder that this is the ultimate self-care. You are a part of nature. So why wouldn't you be in harmony with the cycles,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You're a part of this natural death and rebirth all the time. And it can be a beautiful way to come into the truest relationship with yourself,
Mhm.
and others.
Right.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
doesn't that, so we always talk about this. I'm sorry, I'm having an allergic reaction to something. So suddenly I'm itchy everywhere. I can't get it anyway. So just deal
Somebody's
with
talking
it.
about you.
Yeah. So one of the things I really appreciate about this is I believe that one of the reasons we started this podcast, we talk about it a lot, is that if you can have an informed death, you can have an informed life. And part of that, a huge part of that, I think, is in understanding that it's not the big things. It doesn't have to be, like, big things are important, weddings
Right.
and birthdays, and but also just honoring yourself and your wherever you are and not judging it. So I think the new moon to me is always about this. Nope, I'm not going to judge this. I'm just going to look at what isn't serving me, and I'm going to start planting seeds. And I can't expect those seeds to grow in in 14 days at the full moon, but
Right.
just understand that I have to keep tending to those things.
Right.
But I think it just makes our lives so much richer in a way
Absolutely.
that we can't buy that, like that. You can't
Right.
buy your time at the end. When someone's dying, they are not worried about, I didn't get this degree, I didn't buy this car, I didn't work more hours. It's always about I
Right.
didn't get the time to
Right.
do the thing, or I said no when I should have said yeah, whatever that is.
Right.
And I think that what you're talking about, what we're talking about here, I think it's so important, because it is talking about every month taking that time. Don't It's not about going out and buying. It's literally about sitting and caring and for yourself and where you want to go.
Mhm.
And I love that. I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's about living sacredly. I mean, those little things that we do, whatever faith you have, whatever spiritual tradition you have those little rituals or ceremonies that you do that help you to mark time, that help you to create sort of this, it's just honoring the little things in your life. The way that you stir your tea in the morning can be a beautiful sacred ritual. It's a mindfulness practice. That's what we're doing. It's creating mindfulness around, I am noticing this and how miraculous it is. Like, seriously, do you realize how miraculous this life is?
Right.
And how death is just an extension of that. It's death is miraculous as well. It doesn't sometimes look that way, but as part of this miraculous cycle, there's everything is miraculous. Like somebody harvested, thought to put some higher intelligence has this intelligence in this little tiny seed that you put in the ground. It grows into a plant. You harvest the plant, you dry it, you crush it up, and you make a tea that you ingest that is healing and tastes
Right.
good. That
Mhm.
is not to, like, that's a miracle, you
Right.
know, and we see our lives differently
Mhm.
when we start to notice those little miracles, right? And we start to honor them and have those little rituals, and maybe honor the new moon and set those intentions and whatnot. We start to get into a regular conversation and relationship with spirit.
Right.
And
Right.
that's, in my mind, that's the ultimate goal.
I, you know what, I think so again, I like to put it out there for all my peeps. I think that in there are so many different traditions and cultures and beliefs and non-beliefs, that I cannot stress enough that if you don't believe in a higher power, then I hope you believe that you are the higher power, that you are the higher power in your own life. And that, because I just, every single human can benefit just exponentially from having that moment of conversation monthly, cyclically, seasonally with their selves.
Mhm. Right.
Maybe it's spirit, maybe it's God, whatever. I'm not pushing that on you, but I'm just
Well,
saying.
no, I
I'm just
appreciate
saying.
that. You're like, I'm just gonna do the little, disclaimer. We're not pushing beliefs on anybody, and I
Right.
appreciate
No.
that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just think that it doesn't matter if, like, you don't have to believe in horoscopes to understand, or astrology, in order to understand that there could be there just is a benefit from taking the time to check in with yourself
Oh, totally. Yeah.
about how many years does a person waste. I imagine it's huge. I know I have. Not being right, not
Yeah.
being in harmony with myself.
Right.
I still
Right.
have, I just went on a vacation. It was delightful. And literally it's the first vacation I've had in several years where I didn't take my work phone. I said to everyone, whatever gets done, whatever doesn't, I don't care. And it was like so freeing. And I feel like a better human coming back from it. Because I just let myself, like, I think I was on the edge of, like, I don't know, some kind of crazy breakdown. Sorry, everybody. Um, and right, because
Yeah.
it was too much. And I wasn't keeping up on that. It's so important that we remind ourselves to, and it's
Mhm.
not just about like leaving and going on a vacation,
Right.
but quite honestly, once a month at the new moon,
Right.
isn't it right? Just it just happens to be a great time to just really it's so reflective.
It's like, well, and there's that saying, right? Like, craft a life that you don't need to take a vacation from. So
Right.
what we're saying is that it's like you're creating mini vacations throughout your day. Like, it's a vacation to me to go out onto my deck with a warm cup of tea and look at my container gardens and watch the sunrise. I would do that on vacation and I would be like, oh, wow, this is so amazing. Yeah, guess what? I can do that in my daily life. And there's a mini vacation right there.
Right.
Right. And and taking time to do a little bit more reflection around new moon or whatever cycle means something to you can help you to create a life that you don't need a vacation from. It becomes this vacation in and of itself. All these little tiny moments are mini vacations.
Mhm.
And it helps you, again, whatever your belief, or if you don't believe, I'm sorry, but there is a great mystery out there. We do not need to know all the ins and outs of that, but can we just embrace it and find some real deep meaning and
Right.
connection to it and ourselves as part of that great mystery?
Right. Well, and um I think it's such a beautiful idea that the new moon happens and the
Mhm,
full moon, and there is just this natural
mhm,
change in how it impacts us. So back to the very beginning, it is a time when it's low, and maybe it's a good time for reflection and thought about ourselves and what is working and not working. And it could just be that it's about in your head setting boundaries for yourself, boundaries between you and other people or work or whatever.
right.
um but literally it's that beautiful idea that if we want to make the most of the time, we all start here and we all end here. I don't know how much time is in between those two spaces. None of us really do.
Yeah.
But getting the most out of that time isn't necessarily about who has the most toys or everyone always says that. It is literally about just this beautiful experience
Mhm.
um, that we allow for ourselves. And how beautiful is it that if we just watch nature and we watch the moon and we watch the seasons, that it's just right there. It's just telling us, informing us what to do.
Right. Well, and I think it also provides, my friends and I were talking about this earlier this weekend. It provides a point of faith, at least it does for me, in the fact that regardless of what's going on in the world, some of it is scary. And I know people that are like, oh, I'm really fearful about what's going to happen in the future. Here's my take on that. Life moves in cycles.
Mhm.
We swing way over here and the pendulum will swing back. I believe that there is a self-correcting force in the universe that wants homeostasis.
Mhm.
Scientifically, your body wants
Right.
homeostasis. So if we think of ourselves as the collective body, we want homeostasis. And I believe that there will be a continual organizing force that will, it's always trying to bring us back to center. So we're going to continue to swing a little bit. So I have faith that nothing is going to stay the same.
Mhm.
Change is inevitable, right? Taxes and change. It's going to move in a cycle. Some years you pay more taxes, sometimes you don't, you get a refund, right? Life is like that. And if we get into the habit of living in concert with the cycles, then we have a little bit more ease with flowing with life, both challenges and the joys, all of it, right?
That
So,
that's such a beautiful point, because
mhm,
I remember a very younger me, and anyone who knew me when I was much younger knows that I was mostly crazy, like not crazy like I am now, but like nuts.
yeah,
Yeah. And I I sometimes when I'm talking to my kids when they're kind of, everything,
mhm,
the sky is falling, henny penny. Sometimes I just have to say to them, I absolutely remember this in my life. And I don't think my life has changed that dramatically. I think that my response to it has just, I think, right. I just think that over many years and a lot of practice and beautiful circles with my beautiful friend Angie, and just lots of kind of trying to live more in concert with nature and just here.
right.
I definitely, I don't, I mean, there are still crazy things that happen in my life. And
There's
I
none of them.
just think that they just don't appear to be crazy anymore, because it's like, oh, well, that was weird. I don't get spun up or whatever, because
Yeah.
it, it's just a minute, just a
It
minute.
is, it cultivates resiliency is what it
Yeah.
does, right? And in fact, I'm trained as a mindfulness instructor as well. And what's often quoted in mindfulness meditations or courses is this quote from, of course, I'm going to forget and have menopause brain right now and can't remember the guy's name. Uh, but Viktor Frankl, there we go, thank you, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a very famous author who survived the Nazi concentration camps. And one of the most famous quotes he has that relates to mindfulness is, between the stimulus and the response is a space. And in that space lies our freedom, because that's the freedom to choose our response.
Mhm.
This is what living in harmony with the cycles and the seasons can provide to us, an opportunity to check in and create space so that whatever the stimulus is, you can choose a different response, which ultimately will bring a different outcome.
Right.
And that's where resiliency comes from, is that this stimulus is not going to rock me off my center, because now I have learned that, you know what, it's okay. The rains will come again and the drought, and we'll find a way. There'll be a cycle and we'll continue to move through it. And yes, it's like the trough of a wave. We're in the bottom of the wave. Grief is like that, right, Laura?
Sure
It's a
is.
trough in the wave, and then we come up and we're like, oh, I feel pretty good. And then we're in the trough of the wave.
Mhm.
Everything is a cycle. And if we can ride that cycle and get in tune with it, we're in flow.
Right.
We're in flow.
We're in flow.
So what I want to do as we close out our discussion, such a great discussion. I love this topic. And so two things. One is I am setting my intention at this new moon. I'm going to ask you yours, so you better have yours ready,
Oh,
Laura.
Lord.
I'm setting the intention that I am going to put more content on my YouTube channel related to new moon and full moon meditations and other topics around this spiritual um, uh, connection to nature and living spiritually and soulfully. So I'm going to put some more content out about that. So that's one of the things I'm going to do. And then I'm going to do a card reading for the rest of us. But before I do that, Laura, what is your new moon intention?
Okay, I'm super excited that you asked me this, because it puts me on the hook a little bit.
Yes, it does.
So right. So
My
as I
intention.
said, just got back from my vacation, and after like really wanting to like quit my job, apply for new jobs, whatever, because I was going to lose my mind. What I really realized is that I just wasn't taking care of myself. So my intention, the seed that I've planted and am tending to now, is that I will stop that. Like, I'm going to enjoy life and not work is here. And, yes, I have a job. It's a thing. But also, I am allowed, all the other things like this, that is this small piece, but the rest of it is so much more important. And I'm not going to let that seep into the rest of, like, which I was not doing a good job of. I have in the past been much better at that. And I got away from it. And I think partially because I haven't been as mindful and as clear about taking care of myself.
Yes.
So
That's a beautiful one. And now that you've told me that, darn well I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. And I think that's helpful to have people in our circle to hold ourselves accountable, so I love that for you. And I think a lot of people, honestly, from COVID, we just didn't take vacation. So we got out of the habit of taking time, any kind of time. We were just kind of in this holding pattern of, I just need to survive. And now it's time for us to reclaim our lives, reclaim that balance. So I love that for you. And I'm going to affirm that for you. And so I'm going to pull 3 cards. And this is, so when I do card reads, they are prescriptive, not predictive. My teacher, Colette Barron-Reed, talks about that.
Yes.
You have free will. This is just a reflection tool that can help you to tap into your connection with your inner wisdom and the greater wisdom, and give you some guidance on where you want to put your focus. So the first card I'm going to pull is what are we letting go of? The second card will be, what are the energies of this Cancer new moon right now that we need to just be aware of and contemplate on? And then the third card will be, what needs to happen for our self-care in this next cycle? All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, what do we need to let go of? This is so perfect. You can't make this stuff up. I just shuffled the cards. Sorry, guys. This is grassroots. I do not have the fancy overhead camera or whatever. So this is what you get.
You're doing it.
So this is goblins. I am using, for those who are wondering, I'm using Colette Barron-Reed's. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. So the Enchanted Map Oracle card deck. I can't say enough things about Colette Barron-Reed. I think I have all of her card decks. I have a problem.
It is a bit of a problem, but it's okay. It's a good problem.
It's a good problem. So this card, what we're letting go of, goblins in the protection position. This is all about letting go of addictive thinking. Addictions of any kind, really. We're being asked to let go of negative thinking, addiction. Don't get hooked into drama. We are leaving that behind. That is what we're being asked to leave behind. Particularly, we are addicted to misery sometimes. We can spin a good victim story. And so ask yourself, where am I playing the victim? Where am I playing with fear and limited thinking? That needs to go away. And if addiction, that word rings true for you, think about this. I'm going to out myself. Facebook. I've been really trying to do way more around digital detoxing, leaving my phone outside of my bedroom, really ratcheting down how much I use social media. So that's for me personally, and because I know that I wouldn't say it's a clinically unhealthy addiction, but it is limiting my life. And that's what I have come to discover. So let go of all of those things that are limiting you, particularly in your inner world. Thinking, any addictive thinking, negative thinking, limited beliefs, that needs to go away. What is the energy of this Cancer new moon? Oh, interesting. This is perfect too. This is deep freeze in the protection position. Should have done this reading for you before you went on your trip, because this is all about, you need to slow down or you're burning out. That's what, and this is perfect for Cancer. Cancer's all about home self-care, particularly at the new moon. So if you think you're on the verge of burnout, this is your warning sign. stop your spinning, do whatever you need to do, even if it's lock yourself in the bathroom for 15 blessed minutes with your ear pods in, listening to some soothing music. This is the time. This new moon is all about self-care so that you don't burn out. And it's interesting because it does happen in the heat of summer, right? Some people really love summer and it can be very intense and they love that energy, but there comes a cost to that at some point. If you push too much, you burned out. So that's something to be aware of. And then the last card is, what do we need to do for our self-care this next cycle? Oh, metamorphosis.
Oh.
And now this is in the upright position. Upright versus upside down. Upside down does not mean that it's bad. It simply means that that is a, hey, pay attention. Really pay attention that this is something that you may need to look at. Metamorphosis, this card with regards to self-care, it's about embracing change. We're all going through a beautiful change. Sometimes it's ooey and sticky in that cocoon. But this card in the upright position means that when we practice good self-care, I'm not talking about bubble baths. I'm talking about the real self-care, like saying no,
Yes.
reclaiming your time, setting boundaries, going on little mini vacations during your day. Don't work through lunch. Take your lunch break, even if it's
The bathroom. Don't just sit in your office.
Right. Because what happens is, we all know from that goo phase emerges a beautiful butterfly. Change can be profoundly beautiful and transformational. And that's what this coming season is all about, if we integrate self-care into our daily lives. So that's your message, my friends. And I hope you take that to heart and enjoy your new moon. Enjoy the next couple of days. You may be feeling lower energy. It's usually for 2 or 3 days around the new moon. So go easy. And then you can start feeling that surge of energy and start riding that wave again, and put those intentions on paper. Check in with yourself on a regular basis. So, any other questions or comments, my dear friend? This has been a lovely conversation.
I know everyone just needs to take the time that you need, and don't I spent a lot of time looking around the room saying things like, this place is going to make me crazy, these people are going to drive me nuts, I'm going to lose my mind. And the truth is, it was all about me. I just needed to look here instead of here. I just want for all of us to take the time to really reflect and just carve out space for yourself. Like you said, 10 minutes, earbuds, relax.
Use your meditation apps. I mean, there's a great one, Headspace, has quick little 5-minute meditations, breathing exercises. Everybody can breathe for 5 minutes. Insight timer, which I love. Lots of options there, but utilize whatever tools you have. Any opportunity, create your own self-care plan, but begin to do that for yourself. So yeah, it's a good message. All right, friends, thank you so much. And we will be back next time, and we're going to continue this conversation about death, dying, and all of this juicy life in between. So if you have a comment or a topic you want us to cover, drop it in the comments below. We love that. And share this with your friends.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your new moon, and go take a bath. Go take a bubble bath tonight. Yes, that's all about it.